Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Basketball Podcast. I am Kyle McEwen. You can find me on Twitter at RotoKyleNBA. And I'm joined tonight, like every night, by Mark Roberts. You can find on Twitter at Mark F. Roberts. And that's Mark with a C, like Mark Gasol. Please visit our site at dailyfantasybasketballpodcast.com. If you'd like to donate to the site, you can do that there. Otherwise, like we say every day, it's so important to get everybody to rate and review the podcast on iTunes and anywhere else that it's available. Finally got it approved on TuneIn today. Had to send a stern email to someone, but they were super cool and got it all taken care of. So, all right, Mark, I'm amped up, dude. Like less than 24 hours and we've got real basketball to watch.
So exciting. So tired of the preseason. So ready for some real basketball.
All right, so let's talk about
Let's get our listener, we always tell them to rate and review the podcast, man. They're doing awesome. I've been shocked maybe isn't the right word. I've been really happy with how things have been going for us.
Yeah, if you go on iTunes, we're in the top 25 now,
Yeah. And on the in the sports section in the news and noteworthy, or the new and noteworthy podcast, there was Bill Simmons's podcast, and then we were right next to him.
And I know that there's some wonky stuff, but as far as that kind of changes, far as where you fall on the Hollywood Squares list there, but it's still super cool to just even see yourself next to someone like that.
Well, and I just think it means that our listeners have been awesome in responding to what we've asked them to do.
Holla, holla, holla.
I don't think anybody in their right mind is listening to our podcast from iTunes and saying this one and Bill Simmons's podcast are just the same. I just think it means we have some awesome listeners who.
Hey, believe in ourselves, all right?
I believe in our listeners and their awesomeness.
Straight up. So thanks, dudes. But let's get into the news. That's what everybody cares about. Thank you to everybody. I don't want to be flippant about that.
Right.
I just don't want to also bore anybody with all of our joyous celebration. All right, Al-Farouq Aminu is questionable for Wednesday's game with his hamstring injury. Said if he feels good enough, he'll play. If not, he doesn't want to, risk re-injuring himself. If Aminu ends up sitting out, we'll end up seeing probably Maurice Harkless start at small forward for the Portland Trail Blazers. Although that's one team that going into this week, we're going to have to watch their rotation. I think Lillard and CJ McCollum get pretty big minutes in the backcourt, but they got enough guys in that front court, in that forward rotation that they could end up kind of limiting people's minutes enough to end up hurting their fantasy value. So that'll be something to watch.
Agreed. Yeah, I kind of hope that Amino isn't injured just so that we can see what the rotation looks like.
Right, because even if he plays, he might be limited for the first night.
And Amino is a guy that we put on a lot of people's rosters, so crossing our fingers that pays off for everyone.
Hey, I'm a believer, so I put him on a lot of my rosters too.
Me too.
Ish Smith was claimed off waivers by the Pelicans on Monday. What does this do? Does Ish Smith get the biggest point guard minutes after Drew Holiday, or does Nate Robinson still get those minutes?
I have no idea. They haven't told us. I can't imagine they're going to put Ish Smith into the lineup after just claiming him. But if your other option is Nate Robinson, I don't feel bad saying I have no idea what they're going to do with this. They have Drew Holiday there.
I think if nothing
that's one of
else,
the things you're going to want to watch and see on the first night.
Right. If nothing else, what this does is it says by having Ish Smith there, that puts into question Nate Robinson's minutes a little bit more for daily game purposes, or if you're streaming options in year-long leagues.
Yep. Agreed. Yep.
Alexis Ajinça plans to play Tuesday, but his hamstring's still painful. He's going to be in a backup role anyways, maybe with Omer Asik out and Kendrick Perkins currently slated to start. Maybe Ajinça would end up starting at center, but it's hard to say that he would get big minutes, and then the fact that he's dealing with a hamstring injury, that's going to limit him as well. The Philadelphia 76ers, they're likely to start Isaiah Cannon, Jakar Sampson, Hollis Thompson, Nerlens Noel, and then Jahlil Okafor in Wednesday's game against the Celtics. But what do we do with this, Mark? We know that Nick Stauskas is slated to start at shooting guard eventually once he's healthy enough coming back from his stress reaction in his leg.
Is that true, or is that?
No, that's legit. That's legit.
No, I honestly curious. I hadn't heard that.
It's Stauskas is the starter at shooting guard. I don't know if it was ever outright said,
Right.
but he is, because even Hollis Thompson, who's starting on Wednesday, Hollis Thompson's starting because you've got Covington and Stauskas out.
Stauskas out, yeah. So
Right.
so if Covington's back and Stauskas is back, do we think that's the starting lineup with Isaiah?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
but the Cannon thing is they kept TJ McConnell, and TJ McConnell's a decent assist, decent steals guy. He doesn't have the greatest jump shot, but if TJ McConnell ended up getting the chance to play big point guard minutes before Tony Roten returns, before Kendall Marshall returns, I do think that there's a conversation there about the whole Cannon versus McConnell thing.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we've got Cannon slated for 25 minutes per game in our rankings, and he's, depending on the format, he's close to the top 100. So if you're telling me there's a chance he gets up to 30 minutes a game, we've seen him be pretty proficient in the minutes he's gotten. So I certainly like taking the risk on Cannon. If you drafted your team and you're looking for somebody to stash on your bench because you had an injured player that you drafted and you put on IR, I think he's a great guy to pick up and just see what happens.
Yep.
I would pick up Porzingis over him, for example, but I really like what Cannon can give you. He's going to give you a lot of 3-pointers. He does okay in assists. He does okay in scoring. I mean, his most of his points, most of his production is going to come from the 3-point line, but he's not going to hurt you in any of the other point guard areas. I just think we've seen him do good things in limited minutes. If he's going to start, I think he can be valuable.
And I'm okay using Cannon in a short-term sense, daily games or as a streaming option. But if you don't invest in him from the perspective that you think he's going to have sustained value, because we saw last season that they just don't seem to be too high on Cannon. If they were high on Cannon, I think you would have seen a lot more of him starting in the preseason and getting accustomed to playing with the other regular starters. And that wasn't the case. McConnell was getting action. Scotty Wilbekin was getting action. It's not Cannon's job to run away with, I don't think. Over in Chicago, Fred Hoiberg said that the depth on the team is going to allow him to keep most players in the 25 to 32 minute range. That definitely hurts some players' fantasy value, but it might help some other players for those deeper league considerations.
Yeah, are we too high on Jimmy Butler now?
I don't think so, because you look at the wording from the Twitter update from KC Johnson at the Chicago Tribune. It said it will allow him to keep most all players' minutes down. So I think you still have certain guys like Jimmy Butler, who's probably going to play big minutes or more than that 32, but everybody else might be in that 25 to 32 range. If anything, it makes me worry about Mirotich's ceiling and Pau Gasol's ceilings.
Mm-hmm. But we've got them both comfortably in that range. So from a rankings standpoint, you don't want to panic, but it does. I mean, listen, if Mirotic got 32 minutes a game, I'd be thrilled.
Right. Yep. And we don't know what's going to happen over the course of the season too. And obviously Hoiberg's also looking from the perspective of Bobby Portis being in the rotation. So it sounds like a five-man big man rotation, which does not sound good, but maybe it'll be one of those situational things where, like, on a given night, these 4 guys play, on a given night, these other 4 guys.
I would not be shocked to see a trade there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think it's pretty likely either Noah or Gibson is on their way out. But
if they could trade Derrick Rose, I even think they'd be willing to trade him. There's enough contention there. So
I actually saw an internet rumor about a Rose trade to the Lakers, but we don't need to get into conjecture here.
How lucky would that make Chicago? Billy Donovan of the Thunder said that Mitch McGarry's he went through practice on Monday. He's going to be available to play in Wednesday's opener. McGarry was dealing with a concussion. There's no final decision on the starting lineup for the Celtics, but there's the suggestion that Brad Stevens is leaning toward starting the same guys who he started the final 2 preseason games, which was Marcus Smart, Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder, David Lee, and Tyler Zeller. That's pretty much who we had projected the whole preseason, and that's the lineup they threw out in the very first preseason game. So the whole idea that he didn't know what the hell he was doing the whole time, I think, is baloney.
Yeah, Brad Stevens knows what he's doing, but don't read too much into that. Like, they're probably going to go 10 deep, and I don't necessarily think this means that Zeller is going to go over 24 minutes a game.
No, I don't either. But that's the problem with drafting even David Lee. It's right. On a given night, who's going to get enough minutes? Or on enough nights is he going to get enough minutes on enough nights? It's tough. OJ Mayo's questionable for Wednesday's game. Jason Kidd said the lineup for Wednesday's game, the first Bucks game, is going to be a little bit different than the rest of the Bucks games or their next game because Giannis is suspended for that first one. So
that was nice of Jason Kidd to let us know that his lineup won't be the same since Giannis isn't playing.
Yep. One guy to keep an eye on, Rashad Vaughn. He's been playing pretty well for Milwaukee in the preseason, and it's possible he could end up getting some rotation minutes if they. I mean, they've been happy with him. So, anyways, just keep an eye on him, or maybe throw him on your watch list. No Jabari Parker for the opener, so that's just been a weird situation because we haven't really gotten a lot of information about it. And there's all we've ever heard is, well, we don't know when his return date's going to be. We don't know when Jabari Parker is going to come back. But he was participating in like the open practices, and I don't think he actually got into any of the preseason games, but I'll have to go back and look. It's just weird because we've seen some very positive clips of Jabari Parker over the last month since training camp opened, and it makes you feel like he's closer, but it's possible we don't see him until January.
So if you're in a head-to-head league that uses daily moves, are you dropping Parker?
I'm hoping you just didn't draft him.
Sure.
You know,
I kind of hope that too. But say you did, like, say it was your last pick and you just wanted to take a flyer on a guy who was drafted really early in the NBA draft. At this point, you have to let him go, right?
If you don't have Jabari Parker, well, here's the one good thing. If he's not playing, you can throw him into your injured reserve slot or your IL slot on Yahoo.
That's a very good point.
So
is he worth throwing in there, though?
Sure, why not? You know, his potential. Right. If you have nobody else, I would be worried, though, that once Jabari even returns, he's still going to play limited minutes and he's still going to sit out the second game of back-to-backs potentially. So if you have that going on all season, he's probably just more of a headache than he's worth. Go ahead and throw him in your IL or IR slot if you have him already. But otherwise, if you don't have an injured reserve slot and you are playing in a daily lineups league, head-to-head, where you need to make sure you're getting as many games as possible throughout the week because it's just a short week and one game can make a hell of a difference, then you need to strongly consider dropping Jabari Parker because you need to have guys you're rotating in whenever possible in those head-to-head leagues that have the daily lineups. Something that I guess we're probably going to be hammering home a lot of strategy early in the years to make sure that anybody who's new to the podcast is kind of hip to any of the suggestions we have on how to manage your team throughout the season. So hopefully that doesn't become a bit too didactic for everybody who's listened over the years. Looks like Derrick Rose is still dealing with a little bit of blurry vision, but he's going to start in the Chicago Bulls' first game this week, so that's good to go. Caldwell Pope, who had been sitting out with a left foot strain, missed the last preseason game for the Pistons. He's going to be good to go for their Tuesday opener. Aaron Baines, 15 minutes minute limit is going to be lifted as well. Out there for the Charlotte Hornets, we've got Kemba Walker, Batum, and Elvis Jefferson starting, with PJ Hairston likely to start at shooting guard. And then at the power forward position, it's either going to be Marvin Williams or Cody Zeller. Anything to talk about there regarding the PJ Hairston situation at shooting guard and then the power forward situation?
I'm going to bring something up on PJ Hairston, so give me a second on that. But as far as the other two, no, I'm not interested.
We dealt with that last year.
Yeah, I don't want to spend any more of my life talking about Cody Zeller or
Big booty Marvin Williams.
Yeah, we know what they are. They're not great. Like, if you're in a deep league, you can use them, I guess, but I'm just not interested. We just know what they are. Like, there's no ceiling there. There's no, like, if everything breaks right for them, they're still probably not in the top 100 in any scenario. So they're just not guys that I would be interested in targeting.
Yeah.
There's my PJ Harrison stuff. PJ Harrison is a bit more interesting to me just because I don't know what he is, and that's maybe the best thing I can say about him. I don't have a lot of good things to say about him, other than we haven't seen a lot of him, so we don't know that he doesn't. We don't know for sure that he doesn't provide fantasy value. So I guess take a look, see what he can give you. I'm not adding him anywhere for sure, but
There's enough of an air of mystery that you're somewhat intrigued.
Yes. Like,
okay.
And I guess that's my point with Cody Zeller and Marvin Williams. There is no intrigue there. There's no mystery. Like, we know exactly what they are. They're not good.
The most intriguing thing about Cody Zeller is the fact that his mom tweeted out something about a birthday party for him. And then he was like, Mom, my birthday's on the 8th. And she had tweeted out for like the 15th or something. Like,
I don't know. See, he's so boring that even his mom doesn't care anymore.
Oh, brutal.
She would drop him from her fantasy team.
Oh, she would never draft him.
No, she's too smart for that. Absolutely.
All right. So my take on PJ Harrison is he's like the poor man's version of Deion Waiters. I don't want anything to do with him.
That was worse than mine.
Yeah. No. It's worse than PJ Harrison's. Well, wait a minute. Actually, I don't want to. I don't know what his situation is with his family, so I don't want to start making jokes. Okay. But anyway, Cody Zeller, we didn't make the Cody Zeller joke. Yeah, his mom messed up his birthday. Right. That is brutal. You might be adopted.
So there's a 0% chance that I'm adding Marvin Williams or Cody Zeller at any point in the next week. I think there's a 5% chance that PJ Harrison does well enough that I would add him in a standard league. So almost no chance, but I'm leaving it open that maybe something happens.
So what would PJ Harrison help people in if they picked him up? Potentially.
That's a good question. I think, last year we saw him shoot 32% from the field in the limited run he got. So I don't think that he's probably ever going to shoot that low with consistent minutes. If he did, he wouldn't get consistent minutes, but he's going to be a drain there. So it's probably head-to-head leagues, and he's probably going to help you a lot with 3-pointers and scoring. We saw his assist level was quite small. It's under 2 assists per 100 minutes. His rebounds were actually quite high for a guard. I don't know if that's sustainable or a small sample size. Looks like his steals could be useful. So I think that you'd be looking for 3 categories from him. You'd be hoping for points, 3-pointers, and steals.
Deion Waiters.
No,
and in a really terrible shooting percentage. Like, I'm pretty sure he thought he shot like 33% from the field at the summer league this year as like, a fourth-year rookie. So he's actually only in his second year. So, but anyways, PJ Harrison, don't bother. Aaron Aflalo, he's got a strained left hamstring that's expected to keep him out possibly as much as 2 weeks. So if Aaron Aflalo is missing in the first 2 weeks for the Knicks, are you adding Sasha Vujacic, who's probably going to start at shooting guard in his place?
Ooh. Would you rather have – if somebody made you add Vujacic or PJ Harrison, who would you add?
Oh, my God. You know what?
That's my answer.
I would take Harrison just because I think there's the possibility of bigger minutes. But, like, I wouldn't take – I don't think
Vujacic is a poor man's PJ Harrison.
Okay, head to head, I'd take Harrison because I wouldn't be worried about the percentages. I'd take Vujacic in a roto.
I think the point of that exercise was to say we don't care about Vujacic.
I like him a little bit more than I used to. I don't know why. He got a little sassy with the media when they started asking him about his ex-wife, and I kind of liked that. But anyways. All right, moving on.
If you play in a league that counts hairbands, you probably should pick him up, though.
I'm one of those D-bags who, when I had long hair, I used to hold it back with a hairband. So, anyways, Jarrett Jack did not practice for the 3rd straight day Monday. He's got a left hamstring thing. We'll see if he's going to be ready for the start of the season. If he's not, maybe Shane Larkin gets put into the starting lineup.
That's Shane Larkin's music.
Hey, yo. What would Shane Larkin's music be?
It would be like the Charlie Brown music, I think.
LeBron James says he's ready to play Tuesday against the Bulls, says there was never any doubt that he'd play. Whoa, what a strong statement. So
he always acts like the media is ridiculous for insinuating something. Like, we get these reports that his back is hurt and he's going to sit out all these games, and then we, like, somebody asks him if he's going to play, and he's like, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you even question that? Well, I don't know. You had a back injury.
Final little injury thing. Omer Sheik will not play on Tuesday. He remains out. Yeah. So whatever.
we're not getting excited about
Sheik,
Omar
no.
Sheik either. No.
Sorry, that's all I've got for the big news items of the day. Mark, what else do we want to get into?
Yeah, I thought it might be interesting to the first week of the season. There's going to be a lot of wonky performances. Players do funky things, and some of it's important.
You
to
sound
know
like a
about.
radio DJ right now. We're gonna have a lot of wonky performances. People do funky things. Sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have interrupted.
Oh, you're good, man. What was I? Oh, what was I talking about? No, you're good. So some of it is believable and some of it is not, right? Like we're going to see some random player score a bunch of points and everyone's going to run out to pick him up. And then that's going to be his best game of the season. And then we're going to see some other things that are really, really important that help you make decisions about your fantasy team. So what I wanted to just go over for a few minutes is what you and I will be looking for in this first slate of games. There's 3 games tomorrow night. And mostly what we're looking for is roles to be defined and the minutes, how the minutes are allocated. So we're not necessarily looking, or at least, and you can give a different perspective on this, Kyle. I'm not looking to see like if a player goes 12 for 13 from the field and scores 30 points, I'm not going to bump them up 40 spots in our rankings. What I'm looking for is there somebody that we thought was going to play like 24 minutes a game that actually got 33 minutes a game for the game? Or somebody that we thought was going to get 30 minutes who actually got 20 minutes. And if it's not because of foul trouble, and if that looks like the regular rotation, then we're going to change our rankings based on that. And those are people that we can either pick up or drop pretty quickly. Is that fair? Is there anything else that you kind of look for?
No, that's perfect. That's just it. You're looking for outliers or things that are different from what you hoped or what you thought would happen, and then you're comparing it against all of the data that you have, like personal fouls and things like that, to discern whether or not this is something that was caused by something or if it's going to be a realistic projection of what the rotation and the situation is going to be going forward.
Yeah, so let's just go through the games quickly, and I can tell you some of the things that I'm most interested in. So with Atlanta and Detroit, which is probably the game it's going to be on at your house.
Hey,
right,
yeah.
Kyle? Yeah. So for Atlanta, I'm looking at the point guard split because I think there's a scenario where Dennis Schroeder gets enough minutes that he becomes fantasy relevant. We've seen him do it in stretches last year. And I kind of feel like either because if Teague plays less or if they play the two together more, there could be a situation where we want to pick up Schroeder. So I'm looking for him, like if he plays 25 to 28 minutes a game, I think there are places, different leagues I might think about picking him up. And certainly if he plays over 30 minutes, I think I would want to go ahead and pick him up.
Yeah, and that's something to keep an eye out for because Atlanta's a little bit different this year. We don't know how many minutes they're going to play Thiago Splitter in those bigger lineups. We don't know how many minutes Kent Bazemore is going to play, how many minutes Thabo Sefolosha is going to play, whether or not they're going to use Paul Millsap in those bigger lineups as a big, small forward. So if some of those things don't come to fruition, if they decide to go with some of the smaller lineups, you might see Jeff Teague and Dennis Schroeder sharing the floor a little bit more. And that's what we're going to keep an eye out for, to see exactly how the rotation spins out and who becomes the kind of what cream rises to the top.
Thabo and Bazemore are not interesting fantasy-wise to me. I think they would have to be getting like, I don't know, 32 to 33 minutes a game to even like put on my watch list. So I'm not as interested in those guys.
Yeah, they're both pretty stark 3-and-D type guys. You're probably going to get a little bit more random assists out of Bazemore, but that's about it.
Yeah. Now on the Detroit side, I think what we're looking for is the minutes that go to Drummond and Jackson. Last year, I was a little surprised that Drummond didn't play more minutes. We've got him projected for like 31 or 32, but we saw in Stan Van Gundy's Dwight Howard days, he was playing like 36 to 38 minutes a game. And, if you saw him play like 38 minutes on the first night and follow that up with another 38-minute night, that's maybe a guy that you'd want to target in a trade. As far as like Reggie Jackson, same thing. You're looking to see where his value settles in. We've seen Stan Van Gundy hold down his guards as far as minutes go in the past in Orlando. That wasn't the case for Jackson last year. So I'm interested to see where he plays him. Will he stick around that 30 minutes per game threshold where his Orlando guard settled in, or is he going to give Jackson 32 or 34 or 36 minutes?
Yeah.
Not that
And
you're
I
picking
think,
up either of those guys, but they could be guys that you either trade or trade for based on how their minutes go.
yep. Yep. And then you're watching to see too at that forward spots between Marcus Morris, Ursan Ilyasova, and not Reggie Jackson, Stanley Johnson.
Stanley the Manly, right?
You're waiting to see how those minutes kind of divide out. But I think that's going to be something that we're going to have to see really develop over the course of like a month to 2 months, because there's going to be a lot of situational stuff that happens too regarding who they're matching up with defensively that may affect who's in there for, for the most minutes.
Yeah, we've got them all around like 26 to 27 minutes per game. And they're all sort of interesting. They're all kind of on the cusp of the top 100 or top 150. So if one of them clearly got into the 30 minutes per game range, I think you're looking to pick up that player, even if it's Ursong.
Yeah, I mean Marcus Morris is available probably more than any of those guys.
Yeah, that's true.
Out of all the drafts that I was doing, Marcus Morris was the one that was still kind of sitting there at the end of them.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Chicago and Cleveland.
Holla.
On the Chicago side, I mean, I think we're looking to see what Hoiberg does in general. You mentioned that note about him playing less, 25 to 32 minutes per game for a lot of his players. That's starkly different than what the previous coach did. And, that will have pretty drastic swings on some of those Bulls players. We were waiting to see if Mirotic is going to start. It looks like we put in this note, or you put in this note that Hoiberg says Mirotic will start. So that's good for everybody that we convinced to draft Mirotic. But let's see how much he actually plays him. How many minutes does Gibson get? How many minutes does Noah get? And sort of like Detroit, I think that will be a situation that plays out over the course of more than one day. But we should get an indication tomorrow what that looks like.
Now, how do you feel about the fact that Tony Snell is starting at small forward? Is he somebody that people should have an eye on at all?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we can always say, in a deep league, put him on your watch list. But for standard leagues, we've seen him before too. He can have some streaky games as far as a shooter goes, but he's just never held consistent fantasy value, and I don't see a reason why that would change.
Yeah, I mean, Snell was playing 29 minutes per game in the preseason, and he was averaging less than 10 points a game, 4 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1.2 steals, 1.4 3-pointers. So maybe you get, sugar plums, I mean, if you're not looking for good percentages, it would probably take too many minutes for him to become
and we
relevant.
know that's a temporary situation until Dunleavy gets back or until McDermott takes his job.
Yep.
So I just don't feel strongly. But like if you wanted to play him, if he was at a good salary in a daily games league, that's fine. Otherwise, I'm probably not interested.
Agreed.
On the Cleveland side, there's so many players coming back from injury or players that are currently injured or Tristan Thompson who just signed a contract. I'm kind of not going to read too much into anything. If they played LeBron like 28 minutes, that would be sort of interesting. But beyond that, I don't know that I necessarily care too much what they do the first game. I don't think it will be indicative of what they do the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I'm going to do a separate Daily Games podcast to kind of go over different picks to consider and stuff from the first 3 days games or the first 3 games of the first day. But J.R. Smith should be awesome.
Yeah.
To start
Williams, I'd be curious what their salaries look like.
And if Kevin Love is cheaper this year, then he might be in a good position too, because if he really is going to play a larger role, no Kyrie.
Is he playing on opening night?
Yeah, Kevin Love's good to go.
Good for him.
So
that's awesome that he got back so fast.
Yes, sir.
Right. Last game, New Orleans and Golden State. With New Orleans, we kind of brought this up already, but like, who's going to play for them? They don't have that many healthy bodies. They have an astonishingly high number of players out with injuries. What's Drew Holiday going to do is probably my most interesting thing. We've heard all preseason that he's going to be on a minutes limit to like 15 minutes per game. So I don't think you can own him if you have to play him at that level. But if he, out of desperation, if they're playing him 24 minutes or more, I think you have to go pick him up.
And they've already upped him to, he played 18 minutes in the final preseason game. And now they're talking about 15 to 20 minutes for,
Yeah.
so,
I
I
think
mean,
they're going to get desperate, aren't they? Like, look at their roster. It's a mash unit.
I just hope that if they do get desperate, that he stays healthy.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
I would rather him play limited minutes until January and then him become something good and stay healthy because he's an awesome player rather
I
than,
totally agree.
like
Yeah.
that's all I worry about is like, I just want him to stay healthy because otherwise we have to watch jerkwads like Nate Robinson. Nate Robinson's fun to watch in small doses,
Oh, yeah.
but he
Oh.
gets, he's just a chucker, Drew
Well, you're
Holiday.
probably like me. You want to see Anthony Davis play in the playoffs. And I think one of his best avenues to play deep into the playoffs is Drew Holiday gets right and is a solid number 2 potential all-star on the team.
If Eric Gordon comes out at the start of the season and he's just blazing, like putting up crazy numbers, Eric Gordon's the kind of guy you trade. That's who you sell high on because he's somebody who has lots of injury issues over his career and because he's going to have an opportunity early in the season with so many guys out for the New Orleans Pelicans to really step up and play a huge role that may not be there later in the season once everybody gets healthy.
Yeah, no, exactly. And weirdly, he still has some name value.
Yep.
Like enough people remember Eric Gordon being a big deal and being in the Chris Paul trade that if they see that they see the name, they see that he's had a really great week. If he averages 22 points and 5 rebounds and 2 3-pointers and he's an easy guy to talk yourself into. But I think exactly why you're mentioning he should be on a trade candidate.
And then
Golden State, I'm not looking at anything, man. I feel like we know what their rotation looks like. Nothing changed. Even if Barbosa, if he's still on the team, I don't know. I'm just throwing out a guy. Even if he plays like 30 minutes and gets a bunch of points, I'm kind of not reacting to anything. I think we know who the Warriors are and what they do. And I think anything that happens tomorrow out of expectation is probably just circumstantial.
Yeah, there's nothing unique about the Warriors right now. They don't have any big injuries or anything, so they should just be their typical
They have
self.
no new players. They have no
Everybody expects Harrison Barnes to take some kind of leap this year, though. But I don't see how does the situation going to change enough for him to become a different player with that team? I don't see that.
Right.
What are they going to do? Take away possessions from Andrew Bogut? Because that's the only place you can take them from. Or maybe you play Maurice Spates less off the bench. Or maybe you just change the rotation and find a way to get Barnes more minutes.
Harrison Barnes is the same player he was last year.
Exactly, because you still got Iguodala coming off the bench and Sean Livingston. Like, it's just there's nothing there, no substance to say this is going to happen. One thing I want to know is Ryan Anderson, his situation with the Pelicans, because he's got the potential. We've seen him go out and drop 6 3-pointers in a game. What if he comes out and is on fire? Like, do you look at potentially trying to trade for him, or if he what's your read on the Ryan Anderson situation, and how do you read whether or not he does good or bad and all that kind of stuff?
It'll be interesting to see how many minutes they have to play him. It felt like last year they were trying to restrict his minutes for whatever reasons. I don't know that it was health reasons. It was probably defensive reasons. But with just the dearth of NBA talent that they have that's healthy, I think that they'll have to play him. I sort of see him in the Eric Gordon role as well. Like if I can acquire him and then trade him in 2 or 3 weeks once he's had a great start, I think that's probably the right move. I feel like he's going to get off to a hot start because we know that he can shoot a bunch of 3-pointers. He's a good shooter. So he's going to be able to score points. He's going to be able to get threes. He's a decent rebounder. But I don't think that once everybody gets healthy and running, I don't think he'll be able to sustain the value that he sees in the first few weeks.
If Anthony Davis comes out and he's scoring 30 points a night, do not trade him. I think that's real.
No.
Like don't trick yourself into trading the best player because he's just playing even better than the best player can. Like whatever Anthony Davis does, right? And whatever Anthony Davis does is going to be real. I don't care if he's dropping quadruple doubles every night. It's real.
I am sort of excited to see Anthony Davis try to win games like all by himself. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah, Elvin Gentry will let him do that.
Yeah, it will be fun if he can get a good supporting cast and they can go deep in the playoffs. But it's going to be a fun first 10 games just watching him try to keep his team afloat.
And there's going to be one of those, a couple of years ago when Paul Millsap had to bring the Jazz down from like 12 down and he hit 4 3-pointers in like a minute and 16 seconds or something like that. There's going to be one of those Anthony Davis games where Anthony Davis looks like Steph Curry and he's like, all right, I'm either going to try and win this game now or it's over. And it's going to be amazing.
I agree. There was one time when Reggie Miller brought the Pacers back actually in like the last 10 seconds. They were down by 6 and they won the game. I don't know if you ever heard about that, but it was
it's awesome. 9.7 seconds, right?
8 points, 8 seconds.
Yeah, it's the there's a Pacers blog.
There is a 30 for 30. I was kind of joking. I'm assuming that you've heard of it. I just wanted to get the Reggie Miller reference in as early and as often as I can.
No, it's good. It's good that everybody gets to know that you're an obsessed Reggie Miller fan. All right, Mark, you got anything else?
No, that's it.
Coolio, to any of you daily DFS fans, like I said, I'll be back with a DFS Soul podcast that's here tomorrow morning sometime that kind of goes over the day's picks and all that kind of stuff at FanDuel and DraftKings. So we're not leaving you out there. This is more, I guess, to explain the plan is for us. We're going to do 2 podcasts. We're going to do the year-long podcast at night, and then I'm going to have a DFS podcast as well that covers all that jazz and yada yada. Sorry, whoops, I'm not supposed to say yada yada yada. One of our listeners got on me on Twitter. He said, "Hey man, like the show, but you got to stop saying yada yada yada." So
I will. Is that a Seinfeld fan?
I guess not, but he's I wasn't using it in the funny Seinfeld way. I was using it as a way out. I was being sloppy and loose. So I apologize.
That should be our tagline, though. Sloppy and loose.
Yeah, I got nothing. That is funny though.
All right, man. It was good to talk to you. Have a good night.
Hey, whoa. What? We have to actually sign off of the podcast. Oh. Okay. All right. This is my name is Kyle. You can find me on Twitter at RotoKyleNBA, and this is.
Hey, this is Mark Roberts, and you can find me at Mark F. Roberts. Mark is with a C.
Like Marc Gasol.
Just like Marc Gasol.
Please visit us at dailyfantasybasketballpodcast.com. Rate us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, all that jazz.
Take your friend's phone at lunch and download the podcast on their phone.
That is such a great idea. Yeah, if you're sitting at somebody else's computer and they've got iTunes, just go in there, log in, do a review for us. Like, why not? I'm sure they'll appreciate it. So pretty awesome. And yeah, whatever. I'm trying to think of what else I'm supposed to talk about. The Promise Ring is our theme song. Our theme song is Happiness is All the Rage by the Promise Ring. We love you guys. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.